Mark and Tim. Still talking about starting a podcast.
So, Mark, we took a 2-week break, and I hope that doesn't bother anybody, but we took a 2-week break.
We broke the cardinal rule of podcasting.
Which is what? Never take a break?
Never take a break.
Never take a break.
Yeah.
But I just want to say, I said if we continue to do this until I turned 40, because you'd asked how old I was, right? I said if we continued to do this until my 40th birthday, I would let you know that we've made it that far. And I just want to tell you today that we have not. It is not my birthday today. And it may seem weird for me to announce
such a letdown.
That,
you were like building up to that.
It may seem weird for me to announce that it's not my birthday, but I have come to realize that we can full well do a live podcast, and it can be one of our birthdays, and the other one of us will not say that.
Oh, are you trying to call me out for when it was my birthday last month?
Like the last podcast that we did, yes. And it was your birthday
really the last
on
one?
the Friday. Yeah, it was.
No, it wasn't. That was 2
I
weeks.
was
Because my birthday is in the middle of
offended.
November. I'm not a big birthday person. And, especially because I am over 40, Tim, unlike, I guess, apparently you're not. I don't know. Because you won't say your age until it is your birthday.
Until it's my
But,
birthday,
as
yeah.
I've gotten
We'll make it that
over,
far.
over 40, birthdays are kind of like, it doesn't really make me feel good inside when that day comes. So,
Really?
yeah.
Now, I just don't like the social media, like everybody saying, "Oh, happy birthday!" Like
That's
just
true.
because Facebook is just like, "Oh, you should wish Bob a happy birthday," and they have like the whole post ready for you to go. It's like, "Happy birthday, Bob," and I hate those.
I got off that train I wonder what happens on my birthday on Facebook. Because I think I have like one or two people who just whatever, because you're right, those little pop-ups come up in your account saying, oh, it's your brother's birthday or friend's birthday, Mark, why don't you wish him happy birthday? And like I don't never check Facebook, and I try to block all emails that come from Facebook saying that I have a post on Facebook waiting for me. so I wonder what happens. It's like, but everybody knows that I'm just not there, so nobody wishes me happy birthday on there. So
well, I've taken my birthday off of all those.
oh really? Okay.
Because like if you actually know
Yeah.
me and know my birthday, great, wish me a happy birthday. But I don't want like random people who have never met me before really to be like, oh, it's Tim's birthday, let's say happy birthday to him. So
yeah.
but no, I just want to be clear though, today's not my birthday, Mark.
Well, it has been 2 weeks since we last talked.
Yeah.
So it is good to do a little bit of catch up, so I at least have a good state of where you're at with your life and know it's not your birthday, so that's good.
That's it. Yeah. we get the big things out of the way first.
Yeah.
Not my birthday.
But
now, how else is life going?
I guess the reason we should probably just talk a little bit about like why we took a break. The first one was because you had a family trip and we were trying
and
to,
I was thinking we'd be able to do it from there, but that didn't quite work out.
and near the end of your trip, I then started not feeling so good. And I started getting a cold and started feeling, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do the show. And also I had a lot of work too that week. And I was like, I'm just kind of a little overwhelmed. Maybe let's not try to push it, or maybe we could do a little bit later during the end of the week or following week. And then once the weekend came, going to the week, I did a at-home test for COVID, and then going to the following week, got tested again. And I was doing okay. It was still like a head cold. It was just kind of like, just kind of bothering my head and just not feeling like, 100%. But then once let's say probably about 3 or 4 days after I was tested, I was like, yeah, I got hit hard. Pretty much then. It was weird too, because I couldn't function or couldn't think. That was the weirdest thing about getting COVID and then having it for probably about, a good 5 days or so, where I was pretty much out of commission, where it was like I could sort of be awake and walk around, but I couldn't. And I would try to do, because I was getting a little bit behind on some like coursework and grading and lessons I was still expected to do. So I was trying to do a little bit at my computer, but just for me to type like a paragraph took like 3 hours. Like the focus of like dealing with that was horrible. So I've definitely been sicker in my life at different points, especially with like sinus infections. I used to get those a lot as a kid, and I had to deal with like 1 or 2 sinus infections per year, and always had something happening, once a year. But then this was weird. It was just like in my head, and just like the fog and the focus just was like not there. And it's pretty much, I just had to just sleep it off and just rest. So,
well, I mean, So I had COVID back in January, and my wife did too. For me, it felt like I had a day that I had some sinus pressure, and it's like I feel like I have a fever, but I would take my temperature. I did not have a fever, and that was pretty much it for me. My wife felt the same thing that day, but then a week later, because of other things in life that kind of caused some stress,
Yeah.
she had like like a what do I want to say, like it came back, right? And she was at that point, she was in the early stages of pregnancy. We had other things going on, and she was in bed for a week. And she'd get up, she'd be like, "Oh, I feel good today. And she like make it to the couch,
Yeah.
and then be like, "I can't,
Yeah.
I can't go any further." And
Yeah.
I know that the thing, I mean, it's a respiratory thing, and it drops your oxygen saturation. So I mean, that could be why, like,
That could
just
be.
any
Yeah.
effort, and you're talking about like the
Yeah.
brain fog type of a thing. You're just not getting what your mind needs to be
It's
able
probably
to
true.
think
Yeah, I didn't think
clearly.
about that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, fortunately, but it was able to,
And
once
then you
the kind of
you didn't answer any of my messages, so I'm
oh,
like,
I was completely off. Yeah, I was like, it was weird too because I couldn't like I just looking at screens actually just tired me out, and even more than I was. So I pretty much just watched some TV and just laid in bed, or didn't really do much. I was not on my computer for the whole time. I was not even on my phone at all.
yeah.
I didn't even really use my phone at all. I was just like completely off the grid, which was kind of nice in a way. That was kind of a nice little bit of a break there. But at the same time, was like, yeah, I was completely because I knew it was like I didn't want to really like stress or function. I didn't want my brain to like just hurt more than what it already was. So it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
just let go of the stuff. So, but it was able to get through that, and feeling better now. Still dealing with a little bit of congestion, and hopefully I don't have to hit the mute button too much for me coughing and sneezing today. But seems to be doing better. But yeah, it's like when you're especially when you're working, it's hard. Especially now we're all used to work from home
Right.
and kind of doing everything remotely. But then once you get sick like that, even if you're working from home and do remotely and can try to chip away at some things, it's like when you are, you are really seriously sick, you can't do much. So and it sucks to kind of get back in the flow and to
But that's
get
a
back
weird
into
feeling,
the
right?
process. Yeah.
It's like a weird feeling that I think a lot of people are kind of coming into realizing that for some of us that have, been remote working and working from home for most of our career, like, and I know we've talked about work-life balance here, so I'm not going to go too far down this road, but it's that thing from the perspective of someone who's working from home. Sometimes it can be hard to I don't want to say step away, but like you don't ever leave the office,
Yeah.
right? So you feel like I'm here. I don't feel well, but I'm at work. Shouldn't I be able to
should
work?
be doing something.
You know, and like, and that's sometimes why it is good if you can carve a separate space. It's like, well, I go there to do my work. I'm just not going to go there, but it can be a mental thing because you live at your work.
I think that's also part of the reason why I had to totally disconnect, totally shut everything down, because I would also get frustrated. Like if I couldn't like be productive in my head and start and just do a little bit of something or make progress on a project or something like that, I start to get angry at myself and start to get frustrated. That's when I started to feel better. My mood started to change. So it's like, oh, I can finally start to think. I can function. It actually feels good. And so that kind of got me in a better place, because that's why I was like, I let go of everything. So if I looked at my phone, or at least saw what other people were talking about, or just checked emails, even checking emails like work emails, I would start to just feel more pressure and just feel even worse. So just had to let that go for a little bit and come back to it when I can.
Yeah, yeah. So well, that's good. I mean, I'm glad that we're doing it again.
So yeah, because I guess the show title is "Are we doing this still?"
Yeah, we had a good run. There was
it's
6 episodes in a row.
We didn't even make it to 10. Trying to make it to the episode 10.
But we had a holiday in there too, and I mean, how? Obviously, you were just recovering, but
no, my
Thanksgiving now.
Yeah, well, because it also ruined our plans too, because we had the in-laws were going to come up and we're going to have some time, and yeah, then we had to cancel that. So it was not our holidays. My wife did a great job cooking and doing everything she was going to do, but yeah, we couldn't have family over, and it was just kind of a bummer. So
yeah.
It is what it is. But looking forward to Christmas, right? So kind of trying to turn the corner here and looking forward to the holidays. And what's Christmas like at the Tim household?
Well, I mean,
with your plethora of children abounding and bouncing through the house through the holidays.
they certainly are. And I mean, I'm hoping. I don't think we have anybody practicing piano today. I was like, headphones, please, headphones, please. No, I mean, Christmas has always been one of my favorite holidays. So we'll do fun stuff with the kids. With a family our size, my wife and I tend to want to say, let's minimize physical presence and more like let's find something, a gift that is more of an activity type of a thing. Just because, everything times 8 kids, things can get
yeah, you
bit
wouldn't be able to
wild.
fit anything in the room.
Yeah, yeah. So no, but for us, like what we've done the past couple of years, and I think we're going to do it again this year. We've done a really big Christmas breakfast with a bunch of bacon, eggs, sausage, pancakes, ham, all that kind of stuff, and that's been really fun because then we get the extended family over for that. Lots of people around enjoying some good food.
So do you on these off times? Because I'm assuming like with your schedule with work, because when you're doing work for companies, it kind of winds down around like week before Christmas, or kind of as it gets a little bit closer to that. So
Sometimes.
do you pretty much just like let go of everything and just kind of take a break and kind of just step away from the projects that you're working on till like till maybe after the new year? What's your schedule like?
There'll probably be a little bit of that where we're doing things so not fully engaged. But what is nice is a lot of times it is when the rest of a company, people that are more involved in the day-to-day operations, like if you're sales or support or even customers, tend to be using your product less, right? So it's a good time where there's not going to be people coming in with support requests or something like that. So if you want to make some progress on a project, you may have some more free time there. So
Do you have any like horror stories about like companies wanting to push big updates around the holidays, like after Christmas, because for that reason, where like the usage was lower, so the server load was less, and so like okay, let's push some big updates
Right.
to this time.
right in between Christmas and New Year's, right?
Yeah.
Because nobody's going to be using it. No, I don't know that I've ever seen or had to experience that type of a release where like we're expecting you to be on call because we're doing something significant in what appears to be a downtime.
Yeah.
Obviously, some things like calendar years force you to release things. Like if you think about accounting systems and stuff like that, they may need to have a change that goes into to effect January 1st, and I can imagine that being a little
Yeah, fortunately,
what do I
never had
say,
a bit push any big
stressful?
updates, but I was definitely around some system administrators who had to do some system upgrades around that time, and
Oh,
that was not a happy time, especially because they're pulled off, when everybody else is off and has some free time, some vacation time. They're updating some Linux operating systems or packages or whatever that to do to keep the updates running.
yeah. No, as far as I can tell, I don't think or as far as I can recall, I've never been in that position. So
But you're doing something with the TDD testing
hopefully,
thing
yeah. I mean,
leading
that's
to Christmas with your team, right? Which
well,
is interesting. We've talked about how the fact I've done a little bit of testing in my past, but I'm actually kind of interested because I'm kind of actually would like to see how a team would approach this or type of problems you guys are type of think about, and then think about how to practically apply that in my projects or my code going forward. So what's your ideas with that? Like, how are you going to be
yeah,
doing that?
it's something I definitely have to be working on now because
Well, now we could work on it together, right?
yeah, I tend to
Get the brainstorm.
I should kick it off on Monday because that gives us kind of 12 days weekdays.
Okay.
So you got 5 days in the first week, 5 days in the second week, and then 2 more days right before Christmas Eve and the Christmas holidays. So 12 kind of working days to do a 12 days of TDD. And I'm structuring it because I have people on my team that are interested in doing something like this. But my plan is it's not like for my internal team. Right now, what I'm planning on doing is creating a GitHub repo, and every day every working day, right? There'll be a new challenge or problem, whatever you want to call it, and it'll basically have a README that describes what should happen, and then it will have the inputs and potentially the output as well. So if you're creating the test, I'm going to give you the test cases you can run against it in whatever test platform you're using. So it's not going to be PHP only. It's pretty much going to be whatever language you want to use. So and if you've followed, there's a site called Advent of Code. If you follow
that's what I was looking up, because I was on Hacker News, I think, before I got sick. I was kind of, that popped up, and they had the Advent of Code, which is programming problems that they have. And I was taking a look at some of the previous years, and it's just also just to see the dialogue at Hacker News about people like having fond memories of it, but then everybody pretty much, majority were saying, okay, I made it through the first 2 or 3, 4 days, and then you gave it because it takes so much time during the day to figure these things out.
That is basically the position I find myself in. Like, I've liked doing it in the past, but I can't justify the amount of time it would take to do it, especially since Advent of Code, you get stars based on doing, it's 2 problems a day. And the one problem is usually a simpler solution. And then the second one, once you solve the first one, it unlocks the second one. And that's more complex. But then also for the leaderboard, if you're going to do the leaderboard with other people, which is cool, it's just really cool, because you could say like, hey, we're going to have a group of us do it together, and it'll score, our standing. But the standing also takes into account not just have you done it every day, but how quickly from the release your solution was in place. So it's fun, but yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot because it's 25 days, so it's 50 programming problems. So it can be quite the commitment.
So for your TDD, 12 days of testing, how are you thinking about doing? Are you gonna be like debriefing, like after every day, or at the end of the week, or like how, like, are you gonna be sharing? Because you're doing it within your team, like a small, like I'm assuming like 4 to 6 developers, if that.
No, we've got more than that. Maybe 4 to 6 that do it.
How many developers do you have that you remotely?
Right now, and it's who's active and who's working on DevOps and stuff like that. But the number of developers are right around 10.
Okay, good.
Somewhere in that neighborhood, for at least my primary client. How I see it working is the GitHub repo, every day I'll have a new README in a directory that'll have whatever your test input and output. And then if you clone that, you can do the work right in there, right? You can create your own branch with your solutions, and then the next day just do a rebase against master or whatever our mainline branch is. And since you shouldn't be editing the input files or the output files or the README, the rebase should be clean, and you can just keep your solutions in your own branch and pull in new problems every day. And then I'm thinking what we'll do is that's, if you commit it to your GitHub repository, it's going to be really easy to say like, oh, this was my solution, and let's look at your solution and let's see, well, how do they differ? And the goal of TDD, just to like, these are going to be probably, a lot of them are going to be easy problems to solve programmatically, but the goal of TDD is to write the tests first. It's not just test covered development, it's test driven development, right? So the goal is structure a test first that says, I have this input, I have this expected output, I have these requirements essentially. Write a test that doesn't work and see how that process is like. Because if you've not done TDD before, that can be an interesting thing to try to wrap your head around and an interesting habit to form. But having done it as long as I've done it, there are so many side benefits to it. I end up having to refactor my code less because of TDD. Because I'm basically using my code before I write it. Because I'm taking the test and I'm saying, all right, we're going to set up a test that has this input, or however, is it a function, is it an object, however it works. Am I constructing it and passing it input? What am I, however I'm doing it. There's some interface in whatever system I'm testing, and I'm basically using that before I write it. Right? At the very least, I might create an interface that has all the methods, so my IDE knows that I'm calling the right methods with the right arguments, but there's no code filling in those methods.
Do you think that was kind of like an easy thing for you to adopt because of you having a background in developing APIs or working with APIs, kind of, because that seems like the workflow of thinking about the end result, the data that you need to get, and also the requests that you need to send in order to get the data back, and then you kind of write the code that would be kind of following that in like an API way.
I don't know. I've never thought of it that way. Because it did take me a while to get into that rhythm, and to really see the value of TDD.
Because I think from a user interface perspective, where I come from, I've never got into it as much because of just thinking of from a user perspective. And you can write tests for use cases and user flows of what we're trying to, when we're testing interfaces, but it never felt really intuitive from a TDD approach.
Yeah, and me not having done TDD on a front end project, I don't really have a good feel for how that translates in terms of what, the specific benefit here, in that you get to kind of see how your code would work before you have to write the code. Because with what I'm doing, it's like, oh, I'm going to call this method with these 3 arguments, and then as I build it, I'm like, well, that's really weird to test it that way, or I don't like how I'm having to test, or there's friction with me testing. If there's friction with me testing, what I'm really saying is there's friction with me using it. So maybe I want to change how it operates. Because making it easier to use it in the context of a test is usually going to make it easier for me to use it in the context of whatever code is going to consume this thing I'm testing. So I get to just say, oh, it's a good thing I didn't write all this code to do all this work. I just have this kind of shell of an interface, because now I can change it. I can say, oh, I was throwing all my arguments in the constructor. I don't like that. I'm going to throw just this thing that I need in the constructor and put these in this other method, so I can reuse my object and it has no state, that's ever going to change, or whatever the design decision is. It's a lot easier to change it when it's just an interface than it is a lot of code that you have to copy and paste and make sure it's still working.
So, thinking about the advent of code, are you going to have some type of fun Christmas theme to these problems? Are you going to be very creative with it?
Probably not.
Come on.
Especially since I need to get it done. I need to start it on Monday, and I have just only thought about it thus far. I have talked about it. I said this is a good thing to do. We should.
It sounds like a good problem. Maybe your oldest daughter could help you with, because she seems to be creative and could come up with some ideas. I think you guys could pair program this together.
She might. Well, she's not the programmer though. It's my second oldest that's been doing the programming.
Okay, really?
But
okay.
Yeah. But we'll see. I don't know how much of a theme I can add to it. What I do want to do is there's some like example code out there that has been put together for refactoring and for improvement, and it's not under test. And I think I'm going to reference some of that, because one of the things that I'd like this exercise, one of the components to it I'd like it to have, is to take code that's not under test and say, we want to change the behavior of it. So let's do that in a test-driven way, where we say, oh, I'm going to start touching this method that works. Well, let's first write a test to ensure whatever change I do doesn't break it. Because we're dealing with that all the time, taking legacy code that doesn't have tests around it, and then we want to change it, but we want to change it confidently. So getting developers familiar with, well, how am I going to use tests to ensure that as I fix bugs, I don't create more? And that mindset of, well, the first step of solving a bug is to write a test that fails. And then when you fix it, you actually fixed it.
And I think you could just modify just some of the text a little bit, throw some gingerbread cookies in there, and some elves and some presents in there. I think you could do something like that. Make it some fun. Because
the start of every problem,
if it doesn't have a Christmas theme, I'm not getting involved in this. I'm not checking this out. Come on.
We'll put a Christmas theme in there just for you.
I want this to enlighten my Christmas spirit and bring me joy, right?
Well, you can listen to Christmas music while you do it, because nothing gets you more in the mood for test-driven development like some good Christmas music.
That's the thing I'm talking about, because my impression test TDD is kind of like, oh my gosh, it's like it's an extra step. It's some extra work that I have to do that I'm signing myself up for. So I gotta, in order for me to do it, I either got to have an interesting project around it, or it has to have some fun kind of game aspect to it that I could kind of get into. So,
and I think there's a lot of developers that have that perspective.
Yeah.
That, oh, this just is going to slow down my development.
Yeah.
And it will at the start, right? It will as you get used to it. But once you are comfortable with that as a method, I don't think it slows it down. I think in the end, what happens is you have a better product at the end, and it doesn't really take you more time, because how do you test it now? Right? That's the thing. Like, I tweeted that out the other day. Like, you'll find code where, as you're working on it, you have a controller or a test script or something like that,
Yeah,
and
a
you
build
throw
script.
some
Yeah,
things that,
yeah.
well, not just even, maybe it's
Well,
a
like,
build script, but
it's part of the build process. You could throw some test cases in there
right,
that
right.
run before it actually goes and does the actual packaging, everything like that.
Yeah, well, and because you're thinking you're working more from a build it and deploy it. I'm working more from I'm running this locally, because PHP is an interpreted language, so it's just like a script that sits there, and it does a couple things, and then you dump the output, and you're like, oh, look, I got what I expected. It's like, well, that's a test. It's just a test that you're going to throw away. So you did work that you're then just going to throw away, because the next time you need to test something else, you're going to take whatever this controller is or whatever this standalone command line script is, and you're just going to modify it to test the other thing. So you've done work to ensure your other work works as expected. That's a test. But in this context, you're just going to throw it away when you're done, instead of say, why don't we keep this around so we can be pretty sure we didn't break anything. And it's like anytime you have that, well, or even like the other testing people do, is they just go to the website and they hit refresh. Did it work? Is the title where I think it should be now that I made this change? And
Well, that's why you have hot reloading.
that's exactly
right.
exactly right. That's exactly right. But once you get to things that are complex and that really would benefit from a test, that whatever you have to go through is like, okay, so if I create a new thing and then I label it this is the thing that should happen. And you're going through all those steps every time to be like, does it still work? Well, wouldn't it be better for the computer to go through those steps for you?
Yeah. Well, I do see the sense of like I said, as part of setting like a system up so that let's say, when I've done testing before has been, okay, if I make this feature, then if it's part of the overall build process that I, like I said, have to do some packaging, or if I'm going to be, compiling a site, I want to make sure that this feature does not break whatever is a series of other things that within the website or within the system that I have, then I do like the automated unit test within like the framework that I'm using, because those are easy to kind of set up and do. And if I wanted, there's something really important to do, and it's kind of overall part of the process of the build process to me. But I've never gone into, okay, let me write that unit test first, then build or derive the function that I would then use as part of the application from there, which I do see the sense of. But I guess it is kind of that initial upfront. You have to wrap your head around, let go of the fact that it may take a little bit more time up front. But in the end, like I said, you're doing the refactoring from the beginning in a sense, and working through those issues that you would have to eventually do anyway.
Yeah. And it's like a different way of thinking. But once you start thinking that way, you're like, oh, I'm basically thinking from a design for TDD is another way to say design first, and make sure it works from the outside correctly, and then just fill in the inside until it passes.
It's true.
Which and then refactor it so the inside works more performantly, or whatever you need to do. So yeah, but hopefully, so Monday, if anybody's listening to this and it's not like 3 years from now, hopefully Monday I will tweet something out to a GitHub repo where you can see if you want to join in and do the 12 days of TDD. And this isn't my idea. Like this, somebody did this on Twitter 5-10 years ago. I messaged them. I didn't get a response from them, so I'm just gonna kind of go with it's a cool title, and we'll see how it works this year.
Yeah. So what's your kind of your plans to kind of going into the new year? Do you have some interesting things you're thinking about that you might, because usually the holidays are time for us to kind of take a break, spend a little more time with the family, but also kind of think about, what do you kind of look forward to from a work perspective? And are there any kind of projects or anything that you asked me what my dream project was and what I was chipping away a little bit of time. And these are usually the times like when you have a holiday break or summer break. And, for me, that's kind of usually the times I chip away at those projects. But for you, is there anything that you go back to?
I mean, there's so many things, right?
that you hack on to.
The thing is, I just don't have honestly, the thing is just there's not the time. There's not the time, at least in my life place now, to be able to do that. Even if it's over a holiday, family takes up most of that time. There's always somebody. But yeah, I mean, like, well, back from the LV Tech days, I had a bunch of different concepts I'd throw out. I had my sample startup weekend pitches, of product ideas. Most of them have been built then by somebody, believe it or not. Because if you remember, there was the one product idea where, because in your house you got those switched receptacles, and they're always the receptacle that you don't want switched. You know what I mean? It's always like, I'm not going to plug a lamp into that. I'm going to plug a lamp over there, but this is the one switched receptacle. So just two devices that you plug it in one place and plug it in the other, and now when you switch that receptacle, it switches the other one. That was a pitch for a startup weekend project years ago. 2-3 years after that, there's a Kickstarter for basically that thing.
I feel like so basically just a smart switch. Is that what you're just thinking about?
It's a smart switch, but not not the smart switch that says, okay, now you use your phone to turn this on or off. It's a dumber smart switch. It just says if there's power over here on the receiver or the sender, then there's going to be power on the receiver. So you don't need to connect it to the internet. You don't need to sync it with your Bluetooth phone. You don't need to do any of that thing. This is the stuff that like your grandparents can do this, right? You could just say, plug this one into the switch receptacle and plug this one into the thing you wish was switched, and it'll work.
Yeah.
A real simple hardware application like that. One thing I've always wanted to build for my kids, and I might because there's some.
Because you got a lot of them.
Yeah, well, that's true. But there's there's these toys, and maybe this is a cool thing to talk about for Christmas, because if we have aspiring DIYers out there, this might be something for you to consider. There's more than one like MP3 player for kids, and I don't mean like MP3 player for your 7-year-old. I mean like MP3 player for your 3-year-old. And Play School has a couple of those. They're really rugged, at least that's the idea, and you can load them with a handful of files, and there's big buttons, and they can hit play. We had a couple of those. I never really liked how they worked. So the thing I would pitch, and this I've pitched this to startup, hackathons and startup weekends too, is something like a Raspberry Pi with an NFC reader attached to it. And so NFCs, that's your phone can be an NFC device. That's how your little pay with iPhone or pay with Android works.
Yep.
But that's also how your hotel keys work. Or RFID, NFC, RFID, very similar in concept, at least in this application. And then just take either NFC or RFID stickers and put them on things. So put them on a card that has like whatever song, print off a song, however you do it, right? And then they can just put that against the player and it'll start playing. Because there's no way a 3-year-old knows how to go through the playlist that is shown on the little display, the LCD display. They're not going to figure that out. But they could be like, oh, this is the blue card, and I know this plays the song I like, and they could just put it against that. There have now been like 3 or 4 Kickstarters that do this, and a handful of open source projects that do the same thing. So I'm thinking, maybe I could. That
could sound kind of interesting. So I can imagine like your kid walking around with some like headphones or little earbuds and like kind of holding this brick, right, and then kind of smacking into the wall where they see like a sticker, to be able to kind of play a song or maybe even a story or something
less
like that.
of putting the stickers on the wall and more of putting the stickers on physical objects that they can use.
It can also be a fun game, because if it could be kind of like a puzzle game or scavenger hunt,
where you
style
play
game,
this,
and you would get hints of like the next thing you should be looking for. I can see that. That could be pretty fun.
That actually, that could be.
It would
take
a little bit
use case for the same technology. Yeah,
it would take a little bit of work for setting up and hiding the objects around, but I think that would be pretty fun. As a kid, I think I'd be pretty into that.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. For these little like QR codes or these little stickers, and be able to like, well, not QR code, they wouldn't know what that is, but like a little bear, some type of symbol that you could have like that would have the RFID sticker on it.
They knew that's the thing that they had to touch it to. That could be pretty fun.
So there you go, Tim. I think that's where you should retire on. You think you should start developing this idea and then using the huge user testing group that you're developing internally in your house.
My children. Yeah. I have a child focus group. That's what we've got downstairs.
Usually you have to pay good money for those.
Yeah.
And now you just have it already built in. So I think
fortunately kids are free. There's no cost associated with children. That's for sure. But anyway, so those are the type of projects that I'm like, I wish I had the time to work on that. And then, for those who know me, I've got some farm animals outside and just automating some of that, some microcontrollers, some Raspberry Pi type things. automate the irrigation of my garden, automate, opening and closing the chicken coops, things like that, are all on my list because I do have, and I've, on the socials, I've tweeted out pictures of this, my little stoker system for my smoker slash grill, right?
I saw. Is that the barrel thing that you're doing some cooking with? Like that big
No,
kind of
that
wood
was
fire barrel.
that was different. That was different. I don't have a stoker
I
system
saw some
set up
posts.
for
Those
that.
that looked like a good setup there. You got a little barrel fire thing going on
Yeah,
there.
it
You're
was.
cooking a bunch of things on.
It's nice, yeah, because you can do it. You can treat it as like a fire pit. I'm excited about going into winter with that because we can put that at the top of the hill, and sled down and come up to a nice warm fire.
Just don't slide into it.
Right, that would be bad. Yeah, I would. So that's why it's at the top of the hill. It's not at the bottom of the hill. But no, I've got I don't even know how you're supposed to say it. Kamado, I think, or something like Kamado. Maybe that's it. A Kamado smoker grill. They're the big green eggs. Just not the big green eggs. If people know the big green eggs.
The green,
they cost about the same as your house. But it's the same concept of a ceramic kind of egg-shaped smoker or grill, depending on how you're going to use it. And I've got a fan that blows into the fire pit, and then a microcontroller that observes the temperature of the pit and the meat, and it will vary the fan to stoke it as needed to maintain the temperature.
Is that something? Is the microcontroller something you built yourself?
So I put the kit together. Somebody else designed it. So it's been around. It's called a HeaterMeter, and it's an open source project. It's been around for years. They have kits that you can buy, or you could send out to a PCB manufacturer and you could manufacture it yourself. But they already have it, sent out and different kits that you can easily get with the parts from like DigiKey and things like that. So I soldered it all together. And what's really interesting is it's basically an Arduino microcontroller with its own custom board that does all the real-time monitoring. But then they put that on top of a Raspberry Pi, and the Raspberry Pi acts as the web server. So I can control it from my phone because the Raspberry Pi just sits there and like, hey, I'm a web server, and you make API calls to me, and what does it do? It writes via the serial connection to the microcontroller and just says, oh, they want the temperature to be this now. And then occasionally I'm sure it asks and says, hey, what are the temperature? Or maybe that just streams over the serial line. I don't really know how exactly they're tied together. But that marriage of a microcontroller with a single board computer is really useful because the microcontroller is good at just doing things. There's not really interrupts. It's just going to run. Whereas the single board computer is great at doing high level things like being a web server. And just connecting those two together is really useful where you handle kind of that hardware or whatever you're interfacing in the physical world with the microcontroller. And then you just say, web interface. It just happens because we have a Raspberry Pi, which was why I think Raspberry Pi releasing their own microcontroller, I think it's the Pi Pico, was very intriguing as well because that should make it even easier to do that type of stuff. So, but those are the type of projects that I would love to.
Maybe you should clarify
more
too.
Time on.
Like I said, because I've done when you talk about Raspberry Pi, I've done a little bit of just kind of playing and interfacing with it. The RasPi language, or the Python similar language they have.
Yeah, they have a Python variant.
And just doing a little bit with it. But when you say a microcontroller, you're talking about a specific board that's designed for a specific set of functions. That is then connected to the Raspberry Pi and then interfaces with it. Is that what you mean?
Any formal education I have is actually in electronics, though I've not really ever used it practically in my job. I've always been doing programming stuff ever since I left school. But so I'm going to say that as I have an understanding of the electronic side of things, but I'm probably, if anybody is doing embedded stuff now, they're going to hear me talk and probably say, no, he's not quite right about that, because I'm sure whatever information I'm going to give you is
you're a professional podcaster, Tim. Everything you're saying is coming from a professional opinion. You in the end, people will be paying you for this, so it's okay. Just speak freely.
That's good. That's good to know. It's good to know. I just want to say that I may say something that's slightly wrong, but hopefully it'll at least give you the general sense of it, right? I think the big difference, and I think the lines are becoming more and more blurry, is the single board computers like the Raspberry Pis. Mm-hmm. They're running an operating system and a normal operating system, right? It's some variant of Linux. Yeah, it's a full computer, and it has those pesky things like interrupts. Yeah. And your code could just, the operating system could decide to stop running it. And if it crashed, it can get in a state that, well, what's it going to do? You're going to need to either restart it or restart a process or just restart the whole board. Whereas a microcontroller is much simpler in that you give it instructions, and when it turns on, it just starts executing them.
So it's not running a full OS. It's just kind of just running basically.
And that's where I think the lines are becoming blurry, because I'm not quite sure with Raspberry Pi's new Pico, they have something they call Circuit Python. And I think it is interpreted on the microcontroller, and that puzzles me a little bit, because that seems like a microcontroller is doing far more than what I generally know of a microcontroller in terms of like an Arduino to be doing. These microcontrollers are getting more powerful, so they can run operating systems. But the idea of programming a microcontroller, the benefits, at least as far as I see them, is it's a lot less complex of a system from a hardware perspective. You're basically defining the main loop of the entire thing yourself.
So it uses I'm just reading right now. It uses MicroPython, so it uses a variant of Python.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what's interpreting it.
Yeah,
because I think that's happening. I don't think it's a compile thing where you write in MicroPython and it compiles to something that's on the chip. Like the way they're doing some of these chips, you just drag your Python script onto the chip. The chip acts as a USB device, like the microcontroller-y thing, whatever board it is. When you plug it in your computer, it looks like a USB storage device. You drag the Python file on, and it just kind of works. So I don't know if there's a bootloader that's doing some type of compiling. I don't think there is. I think there's something that's actually interpreting it, which from my perspective makes it seem a little... The big advantage I see of microcontrollers in that you are defining, for the most part, that main loop. It feels like that's gotten a little blurry.
Yeah.
But that's what was nice about the Arduinos is like, there's a loop and you're just like, blink the LED and wait a second and then blink it. That's all it does. It doesn't do anything else.
This is also an area I wish we talk about time, and we should just time to play with things. Like maybe I'm going to buy myself a Christmas present this year. I'm going to buy myself a nice bunch of Raspberry Pi kits and stuff like that. Start playing with them, because I was thinking about that too. I think from introducing programming concepts to new students, and we have used Raspberry Pis for some art installations and for some art projects. We've done that a little bit, but it really takes a special kind of student to really kind of dive into it, because they have to commit to learning it. But just to kind of introduce some kind of technical and programming concepts, and I think I've always thought of this platform as a great platform to introduce students, because for me, just getting into gaming is kind of my gateway, and that's how I got into programming, just liking computer graphics and gaming, and that's kind of pushed me to learn programming. But for other people, just having something physical, having a switch like you talked about,
that
being able to see that, it's something they could kind of grasp with their hands. They could see the connection.
That to me too was one of the great things. I mean, there's tons of APIs out there that make it easy for you to do things. That was one of the greatest kind of wow factors for Twilio and related APIs, because it was like, see this, you write this, or you make this API call, and then magically your phone starts ringing, and that's just a wow, I see how it works. And that's one of the things that with programming is sometimes you don't see how it works. You write a bunch of code, and at the end of the day, well, what did it do? Well, you didn't see it do anything.
Even if you get a little feedback on the screen, kids aren't really impressed with that as much anymore.
Right, but a blinking light, that's amazing.
Yeah, it is true.
And that's I think it is. These type of platforms are great to teach programming, or at least get that interest in it, because you can see it doing something. You can see the light blinking, or you can see I pressed a button and it beeped, and then you start saying, oh, I'm actually seeing this code work. It's not just, I wrote the code that converted it from this format to that format. I guess it did it, and that's, this is why it's work, right? It's not always something that you're like, wow, this is so cool. It's just no, I accomplished the task that was given me. But once you are a developer and it is your job, that's a different thing than saying, let me get you interested in this, because some of that stuff, it's not all that interesting. So,
yeah. Well, this is actually something to think about for, like I said, it's kind of just ideas of thinking about for next year, just like your TDD, your 12 Days of Christmas, and think about the advent of code. It would actually be kind of fun for having like a community-based physical kind of Raspberry Pi kind of TDD, 12 different things you could do and people can
okay.
post pictures and kind of share what they're kind of doing. And the kids could kind of
12 Days of Pi.
Yeah, 12. There you go. There you go.
Mark's liking it more already.
So something maybe, if we keep doing this podcast into 2022, maybe
right.
through next Christmas, maybe we'll have
12.
something we could actually do. I don't know.
12 Days of Pi. 12 Days of Pi. So what's Christmas look like at your house?
Well, we are having, since we weren't able to do the Thanksgiving, we're having a big family Christmas. We're having a Griswold family Christmas. I don't know. Are you a big National Lampoon's Christmas person?
No, but I understand the references.
So yeah, we're doing which I was just told after I started feeling better. My wife,
just like our other podcast.
I think my wife
discover how little Tim knows about pop culture.
And my wife,
what? Do you remember that one though?
What?
The last time we did Dev Friday. Like not this last podcast, but like when we did Dev Friday, what was that?
Yes,
8
I
years
do remember.
ago?
Yes.
Do you remember the whole discovery that I'd never seen any of the Star Wars?
Oh, I remember when that came up. Yeah, I was
like, blown. So who is that guy?
Really?
Like, how do you not know this character from Star Wars?
Was it Han Solo, Chewbacca? I can't remember what we were.
No,
it
was like Boba Fett.
Or Boba Fett. Boba Fett. Yeah, that's right.
I had no idea. I'm like, I don't even know who is this? What are we talking about? And you and Jason were like, yeah, how are you a developer? Who let you into our club?
We lost our mind. Yeah. So what happened over while I was sick, my wife was making these plans. I don't think she wanted to stress me out until I was actually well. And then she told me what all these plans are going to be.
Stress you out? She's like, now that you feel better.
So pretty much in a couple of weeks, like not next week. Yeah, maybe actually, yeah, I think it might be next weekend. Yeah, we're having a good number of family come from her side of the family. Her brothers bringing their kids, and her mom, and the dogs and everything. And it's going to be a big old kind of a few days here before Christmas. But we do, before the holidays. So it's nice to kind of do that a little bit. Then when it comes down to Christmas Day, we just relax. We kind of don't stress too much. I know as a kid we did a lot of traveling to go see the grandparents. We don't do that as much. Because either the grandparents aren't here anymore or they live too far away for us to do that, like to travel to see them on Christmas Day. But yeah, mostly just kind of stay at home and kind of keep it quiet, which is nice. Nice. So, but I'm thinking about one thing I have to do, and I'm on a little bit of a crunch because I have a project that my manager at my school was pressuring me to show something because we have a faculty art show. And you know me, Tom. I'm a great artist who I keep producing work every.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Every month I have something to show, right? So that's
in different mediums too, right? Yeah. That's what I was hearing. Like just some of the strangest mediums. Anyway,
there was a show the department did this in the fall, but I had no time, and I was like, no, I can't do this, but I could put something together for January. So the middle of January, we're going to be doing a show at the Monroe campus up in the Poconos for the NCC's campus. So I was like, okay, well, what can I do? I have to do something kind of interactive. I have to do a game in some way. So to make it something, I have to build something for it. So finally figured out what I'm doing.
Can't you just steal something that Josh Miller's done before and call it your own?
No, I'm not Josh Miller. I don't do that. Maybe Josh does that, but I don't do that.
Wow. Hopefully
no, Josh is
watching.
doing some cool. Josh is doing some cool projection mapping. He's still into that whole building wise.
Okay, yeah.
Huge displays.
And he projection map onto 3D objects too, right?
Yeah, like, but I think he likes to go big now. So he likes to think whatever kind of big building or wall. That's kind of where he's doing a lot of kind of creative stuff. But have you ever about the claw games?
Cool.
Like the claw games, like if you go into like an
arcade, yeah,
like
an arcade that are possible to win, but
do your
keep
kids
playing.
ever like kind of bug you to kind of play those stuff like that?
There was one birthday where the daughter we took out wanted the thing in there and she couldn't get it, and we had to keep playing it till it was gotten.
So everybody's experienced this. And when I been over to Japan, those are huge over Japan. Like the arcades over there, you would just walk in there and they would have these crazy sophisticated claw machines with like,
but you still can't win, right?
Huge, like also huge, like life-size stuffed animals with like a double-sized claw, like just absurd stuff you'd go and see at these types of games. So I thought it'd be kind of cool to do like a claw style game. I'm going to have like a 50-inch TV displayed vertically. So you could walk up to it. I'm going to make it in Unreal and then have basically a digital claw game. I'm hoping I could definitely do it automated. So I could have it like just running on a loop to kind of run the claw and be able to kind of grab the objects in the machine. But I want to make it so it's interactive, so somebody could walk up to with their phone, scan a QR code, go to like a website that they could just do a simple little login, and then have just a couple of buttons just to control it remotely.
So they can control the claw.
So that's where I want to get to. But I know I could do the first part of actually building the simple game, and I'm visioning it. It's going to look pretty cool having this nice big 50-inch screen and walk up to this digital claw game and kind of seeing it run, but then also have it integrated with your phone so that you could have a little bit of interface the person walks up to, they could scan it and they could just interact with the claw that way. So
that'd be great. That'd be great.
So that's what I have about 4 or 5 weeks. I'm working on it now. So I've started that this week. So once I started to feel better, my mind started to work again after being sick. So that's something that I could definitely have to talk about and going into after the new year. So, but this is always fun. Like during these holidays, this is where I have a little bit of time to work on these projects and do something a little bit fun.
Yeah, we did. So back when I was doing developer relations, right, and going to conferences and stuff, one of the best like booth gimmicks that I think I ever pulled off was, you remember back in the day, QBasic and the Gorilla game where you throw the bananas. There's a JavaScript port of that, so you can play it in your browser. Well, I hooked it up so it ran in the browser, but you would SMS in the velocity and the angle.
Ooh, okay.
And it would be two players standing there with their phone, SMSing in, throwing the banana at each other, trying to win the game. And
how would it know?
The whole thing was
it two numbers? Was it two numbers so that each person was doing it?
No, I think it was the same number.
Because I'm just trying to envision the game too. Are they? Is it two characters going back and forth at each other?
Yeah, it's two characters going back and forth.
So how does when they're texting the number? How did it know between the two characters?
It would be. I think we just kind of track the session. It's been a while since I wrote that code. I think we just kind of track the session. So if nobody's playing and you message, it'll let you throw the first one, but then you can't throw the second one.
Waits for the other person.
It's going to wait for another phone number, just an arbitrary phone number. And then if someone comes in and sees the phone number and steals your game, they steal your game. It's just like one person can't send in a velocity and an angle after they already did one. So you always have to let a different person go. But yeah, we get people gathered around the booth playing it, and it was, from that interactive standpoint, it was great. Do you remember the Blinkenlights project? Like Blinken, I think it was Blinkenlights.nl. I think it was a Netherlands website. They're the ones that if you telnet in, it does Star Wars as ASCII art.
I remember I programmed that once. Was it ASCII art or something? I remember I did a simulation of that. Playing the song, programmed the audio for it. I did. It was a college project. That was fun.
Okay. But this was, so this was like the whole thing reduced to ASCII art of one of, I forget, I think it was the original Star Wars movie. But
and about that?
I have no idea. I have no idea what you're talking about. But the other thing that they did was they'd put lights in buildings and let people like play Tetris.
Oh yeah, I remember seeing that online. Yeah, that's fun.
So that's maybe that's what you and Josh should do. Have they blown up Martin Tower yet in Bethlehem? I don't remember.
Well, they did actually.
Didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
It's gone. Yeah, never mind.
Yeah.
Find another big building and figure out how to play Tetris on it or something like that.
Well, that's one thing when you think about.
Like being able to engage through your phone is really cool.
Yeah, with an interactive art installation, that's what we always try to think about different ways we could do that, because when you want to do a display like a show, you could set up some controllers or have some type of interfaces. I have tried the motion tracking. I've always struggled with that, of trying to get motion tracking to work,
the Kinect,
100%. Yeah, or
whatever,
the Magic Leap, or what was that was the last one I tried. So I've dabbled and I tried it. It always felt frustrating to me to do that. But yet providing a good, because everybody has a phone, could walk up to, scan it, and be able to communicate with that. Just having a nice interface that's reliable that could come up on their phone, and then be able to communicate with. Yeah, that's always engaging. So
that was one of our.
Wait, what did you say?
That concept was what, and for one of the hackathons, I think it was the hackathon we did at NCC's. No, was it? No, it was the
Captain Planet, right?
No, I'm not talking about the Captain Planet, but yes, was that your team or was that Josh?
No, that was
I
a
forget
Josh Miller
that
team.
was
So
a
we're talking about Josh
team.
Miller. That was a classic Josh Miller college team.
No, I think it was when we were
Captain
at the
Planet rings.
when we were at the Baker Institutes when they were back in the powerhouse at Lehigh. We did the photo booth, and
Yeah,
that was
okay.
that was the gimmick there too. Is like you didn't have to do anything. You would just scan a QR code, go to a URL, and there would be like it would tell you smile, and that was the interface, and you held it in your own hand, and then you get the picture delivery. It's right there. You've got it. It's it's your picture. So that's always nice when it's not like you don't have to do anything. You don't have to wait in line. You just have to somehow connect with your device, and you're good to go. That helps with that interactivity for sure.
Yeah, and who needs a VR? Because you got to like put in a headset for that. So.
Oh, but you weren't with like the.
No, think about like because that was the other thing we do discuss doing about like think about like if somebody could walk up to it and engage with it like VR. And have you ever gone to like a VR kind of show or installation of having like if you can go put the device on, it's like it's a hassle,
right?
something like that.
Yeah, and only one person can go at a time. Well, however many headsets you have, but still.
Yeah. But just thinking about like types of engage or experiences that you can make, like interactive experiences that's like a show like that, where you could kind of people could just walk up. They don't need to put anything on. They don't need to physically hold anything in their hand except for possibly their phone. That's kind of makes it more accessible.
Yeah,
with that.
So that's your project for the
well, that's what I'm working on. Yeah,
break.
about like 4 to 5 weeks now, because we were like I said we were talking together as a faculty today, talking about what we were doing and working on. So yeah, that's what I'm. So for the next couple of weeks,
make a real claw.
A real claw, like a real physical.
Claw.
No,
yeah, because then you get the Arduino out, you get your Raspberry Pi out.
No, because there's also an interesting thing to me, the psychologicalness of it, of like people becoming addicted to it in a digital version of it, but still not getting the physical aspect of it. So let's say they get the little stuffed bear, the ball, or the toy that they're trying to grab. It's going to go into the little like bucket, the little receptacle. They're going to see it there, but they can't get it. Now, I do think there's a good collection aspect you could do this if you link it to with an app with a phone or at least an online account,
right,
so you can see on your phone and you can see the picture of the item on it. And you can kind of see it. There could be some collection, but since this is an art show, I'm kind of thinking about interesting psychological part of this, where like they could see it come, they could get it, but they can't actually physically.
Hear
it'll
me
drive
out,
them crazy.
Hear me out, Crypto Man. Shouldn't if they get it, shouldn't be the thing that they're getting be NFTs?
Ooh. That could be kind of interesting.
Yeah.
All right. That's something I didn't think about that angle. That could be something to take a look at.
An NFT delivered to them, and then they can just I'm not sure exactly how you would.
So they would uniquely have that object, that digital object that they pull from the claw machine.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I don't know if I don't know how you would identify them though.
Even if I could do a fake
login, yeah.
Even if it was a fake NFT and they thought it was
right. I mean, who's
who's
gonna know? Who's gonna know anymore? I mean, they're just pictures on the internet. Come on.
Yeah.
Do you really know that it's an NFT anyway?
So that'll be fun. At least something fun to work, because the holidays, holidays should be fun, right? To have something to spend some time on, get inspired, take a little break from the
from the normal day to day.
For me, it's lecturing and making lessons, but which then that's going to start up again in the spring semester. So, yeah.
And you're thinking maybe some Raspberry Pis as part of your curriculum type thing.
It's something I definitely want to talk about more with you, because you have a little more experience with it than I do, and it's something that I feel like I've dabbled in it a little bit, and I feel like I just need to kind of buy a bunch of stuff and just figure out a way to possibly integrate it. And once we can get back on campus, be a little bit less remote, which we're starting to do that more going into next year. So that could definitely be a possibility of doing some more physical electronics, interactive things in the classroom.
Cool. So next week, will we have an update on the digital claw?
Maybe. This is a podcast, so I could say I have a screenshot or something to show, and we could just talk about it.
That was quite the positive thing there. Maybe. All right. Well, we've got a minute left.
Well, hopefully we'll at least have some Christmas music.
Yeah, maybe next week I'll update the bumper, so it won't say that we're talking about starting a podcast, and it won't say that it'll have a little bit more of a Christmassy jingle to it. We'll see.
Because I need some Christmas music. I need to stay in the spirit. I need to stay in the spirit.
Okay.
So.
And then hopefully we'll be able to talk about whatever we've done with the 12 days of TDD. And then if you like this, go to, devfridayshow.com. Is that?
And hopefully at some point that website will get improved too. So we'll see.
Yeah, Mark's working on that. Oh, and chapters. We need more chapters.
The chapters is the next big thing.
That's what we need. So until next week, we usually do this Friday, 1 o'clock Eastern. You can listen to us live, or you can find us on pretty much any podcast app. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Ho, ho, ho.